DC Multiverse!
How's it going, super friends? Welcome back to the channel. Today what we got going on is a review of the McFarlane Toys 2-pack Superman and Ultraman. On the packaging here, I really wish they would just call him Ultraman and not Superman of Earth 3 on account of the fact that nobody calls him Superman of Earth 3. We all call him Ultraman. On the back of the box, you'll see an image snagged from the early days of Superman Rebirth and a picture of Ultraman taken directly from the pages of New 52's Forever Evil. Out of the box, you get the two figures, the two trading cards, Atomica, some extra hands, two figure bases, and a mangled up looking Daily Planet figure base. As always, the trading cards are the same as the images on the back of the packaging, and of course, there is a data file bio on the back of each card. And we shall proceed to take a closer look at the mangled up Daily Planet dual figure action figure base. Not much to see here, but it is kind of neat that they made an attempt to do something a little bit different. A neat concept for a base. And as you can see, the figures fit nicely on it, with one going on top and the other one going down on the bottom. The Ultraman figure that we're looking at currently is exactly the same as the previous one, and I'll crack him out in just a second and plop him down next to this guy. Is exactly the same sculpt, except for the fact that the head sculpt, that profile, is very, very different. I know that some people are not so keen on this slightly more cartoonish take on an Ultraman head sculpt, preferring the old school more than the new one, but honestly, the new one's more expressive, the flesh tone is better, they did a better job expressing the heat vision look for his eyes, and they just did a better job this time in creating that whole wind-blown look for his hair. Now, apart from the aforementioned skin tone and face sculpt that are very different between these two different versions of Ultraman, the other huge difference is the tone of blue that they used on the new one. The new one is a much more darker tone of blue. Oh, and the new one has flesh-colored rounded ball hinges, while the previous one had ball hinges the same color as his suit. But really, it's the same figure all around, and I don't know, I think I overall like this one more than I like the previous one. But really, either one is gonna look just as good with the rest of your Crime Syndicate. And then when we come to Goofy Grin Superman here, we have an action figure that's been made on a body buck that's been used arguably almost as many times as there are Harry Potter sequels. If you're looking for a difference between the reds and the blue tints in comparison to the other times that this body buck has been used, I definitely think that this is one of the best red and blue combinations. And yes, even though Superman has that head sculpt with the big goofy grin, it's still, I think, a valid attempt, though yet cartoonish, and a lot goofy. However, when I was previously asked about my thoughts on this action figure, if I was excited about it or not, what I thought, even with the goofy looking face, I said that I was hopeful, and well, clearly you can see why. Because there is a way to fix this figure and make it look a lot better than it does initially. For one, the neck and head combination here, the head is sitting, I think, way too far down on that neck. It just doesn't look right, and it stretches the head out at the bottom jawline. Whereas when you pop the head off of the body and give it a longer neck peg and then warm the head up and just squeeze it back together, you know, so it looks more like Superman's head should, this actually isn't half bad. Also, when you add the Hush Superman trunks to this body and a longer T-peg that attaches the legs to the abdomen, that, combined with the fact that the head now sits higher on the neck, and you actually have a taller Superman in general, which is one of the things that we all wanted, and clearly a Superman who has a much more classic look to him. I'd actually go as far to say that I really, really like this figure now. I think that this is actually a pretty good rendition of the Man of Steel. Should we have to do all this to get a version of Superman that looks good? No. And while this ain't terrible, it also ain't great. It can achieve near greatness, but you have to modify it. I will say, it also does kind of stink that, as usual, there's no S on the back of his cape. Why? Superman's supposed to have an S on the back, and nobody ever puts it there. Let the record show that the only time there's been an S on the back of a McFarlane Superman cape that I can remember, it's on the Hush version. So what do I think about this 2-pack? Well, I bought it because I was actually quite stoked to have figures that I already had that have the differences that I feel would make them interesting enough to repurchase them. Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm the guy that will buy the same figure like 3 or 4 times as long as there's enough differences that make it worth my while. And also, I'm a kit basher and a customizer, so I see the potential in something that maybe other people perhaps don't. But I guess my final word would be, if you have Ultraman already, and you really don't dig this one's new head sculpt and you don't care about the flesh tone, then you're probably fine with the one that you have. And if you've already got the Superman figure that you really want, with the Hush Superman, or maybe the Rebirth is your jam, or perhaps you go way back to Action Comics 1000 and that's the one that you like above all, then I'm sure you could pass on this pack altogether. However, I don't regret picking it up, and I actually picked up 2. One to keep as is, and one kit to use as customizing. Because I'm a sucker for punishment. That's the kind of guy I am. Anyway, super friends, thank you so much for joining me today. It means a lot to me, and I will see you with the next one.